The life of Lori Woodle is nothing short of a miracle of how God blesses us, as she put it, through the immersion from trauma, from the anxiety, from the depression, from the anguish left by trauma, into an abundant life on the other side. Part 2, Going 180, Immersion.
I had a lot of therapy.
No, I mean,
That's what
so
happened.
you were on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I'm going to end it. You had did you know he had a gun?
I did know he had a gun, but I didn't know he had it with him. And I didn't know, I didn't
Where did
know.
he shoot himself?
He shot himself in the head.
My God, I'm so sorry.
So what he did was he was out at the sod farm. He had taken some pallets and he'd sort of stacked up, made this little cubby, and he'd stacked up some tires, and he was sitting on some tires, and he had the phone up and he shot himself. So when they found him, he had his phone in one hand and the gun in the other. He shot himself and his hands just fell.
What kind of gun was it?
It was just a 38 special, just a revolver.
And so what happened? They found him that way the next morning?
I went to sleep. It was Sunday night. It was Veterans Weekend, so Monday was a holiday.
Mm-hmm.
And I had plans for the next day. I was going to take my son. We were going to have a nice day since I had a holiday, and he was off school. So we go out to breakfast. We're going to go have pancakes, and then we're going to go and do some activities. And so he starts talking about, well, now the dad's gone, and I'm like, well, he said he was going to go away. He said I was never, and he was very
so he heard the son heard him say,
no, that afternoon, Sunday afternoon, they had spent the day together. They had gone out and spent the day together and had lunch and done things. And I thought, just spend some time with your son, spend some quality time with your son to soften your thought process, or, bring yourself reality check, bring yourself back.
So had he been threatening suicide before this, or no, he was just,
a little bit over the years. He had said, I'll off myself if I ever get Alzheimer's, or I'll off myself if, things like that people say.
Yeah.
What I didn't know was that he had tried to commit suicide after he found out that the woman he married was a lesbian.
There you go.
And I never knew that. His brother told me that after he was dead. And I said, well, gee, I wish I kind of would have known that, because that might have changed my approach to things a little bit, but whatever, that's, so anyway, so here's this child telling me, and so I hurried up and paid, and I drove to my office where I knew the detectives were working, because they don't get holidays.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in and I said, he goes, what are you doing here? And I said, I think I have a problem, but I need to take my son over to a friend and drop him off, and I need you to meet me.
Because your son told you dad's not coming back.
Basically, yeah, he did. And so he says, okay. He goes, so, my child is standing there because it was, raining outside,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't want to leave him in the car. And so he goes, okay, where do you want me to meet you? And I told him, and he goes, okay. I said, I'm going to be on the way, but so I get out there to the sod farm,
Mm-hmm.
and the detective is there. And he says to me, he says, well, the car that you described is down there, but I haven't been down there. I was waiting for you to get here. He says, I'm waiting for backup. I want you to go up here.
Mm-hmm.
To where the office is, and because it was sort of down a hill.
Mm-hmm.
And so he drove down, the backup came, they drove down, and they get out and they see him, and they just see that he has a gun. So all of a sudden they're pulling their guns,
Mm-hmm.
and then they realize, if they put the guns away, and it had rained on him all night. He'd sat out there in the rain all night. And so he
was still sitting up?
Yeah, he had made this little makeshift cove kind of a thing. And he was sitting sort of in a tire. And so he just sort of slumped, and he was just sitting like this. So anyway, he drives up and he tells me, yes, he's dead. And I like, okay. So I was just, now I'm in shock.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I can't believe this. Like, are you sure? So they take me home, and all of those things, transpired.
Where was your son?
He was with my friend Bill.
Okay.
I had taken him, and so I called Bill and I said, yeah, Bill, this is what happened. I said, can you keep him? I called my mom. My folks dropped everything and came.
Of course.
I called, so I knew I had to tell him. So I called my son's doctor, who was actually a close personal friend of ours.
Mhm.
And she and her husband came over. And so when I had to tell my son, I had my parents, I had Bill, and I had, his doctor and her husband, who were family friends, sitting there with me. And that was the hardest thing I ever did and probably will ever do in my life.
What did you say to him?
I just had to tell him that, I can't remember exactly what I said, but that Dad would not be, he isn't going to come home like he said.
I'm so sorry.
And that
That is just devastating.
Unfortunately, he was,
and
it was awful.
Did he understand?
He did. It took a while to sink in. People are coming to see him.
Right.
At this point now, it's like,
but he doesn't understand that his dad committed suicide.
No, he did
Okay.
not understand that at the time.
But what led you to understand that maybe what you heard or a memory of the gunshot is because your son was telling you Dad said he wasn't coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So is that what made you say, okay, well, I heard something, or
I had so many thoughts in the moment. I don't know exactly. I just knew
you knew something was wrong.
Okay, something's wrong.
And he didn't come home.
And he didn't come home.
Okay.
And so, and it was raining, it was over time, a lot of pieces fell into place over the next 2 or 3 or 4 years that, I could probably even learn something now.
Today. Yeah. So
we go, okay.
So when did your son realize or find out or come to understand that his father committed suicide?
Probably when he was older, but he did know that that he was shot. He did know that he was shot.
He was killed, but he didn't realize he killed himself.
No, he did. He did realize
he
that he had his gun. Something I think what I said to him was something happened and he got shot and he died. I think that's kind of how I put it. I didn't want to be dishonest about it,
right?
But I wanted to be age appropriate honest.
That's right. Did your son cry?
Yeah, he did. And it shock took over him. The thing that was so sad to me was that his teacher, he went to school. I kept him in his normalcy. That was one of the things, is like, don't treat him like this is the world coming to an end, because it is his world coming to an end as he knows it. But keep as much as normal as possible. So I took him to school the next morning and I walked him to class and I told the teacher, and she was just, that was, and I said, if he can't make it through the day, call me. I'll come and get him. But I'm going to be home. But I said, I want him to be as normal as possible. And I want to be able to deal with things at home without him there.
Right. That's smart.
So she's okay. So she, kept an eye on him. But one of the days that week, the teacher, they must be prepared for this in elementary school, because the teacher had all of the students, she passed out pages and all the students wrote a page. I'm so sorry for your loss. And they did talk about it in class on a real gentle level. And then she put together the book, and I actually still have it. And so all of his friends in class knew, dear Greg, I'm so sorry your dad died. Dear Greg.
But they didn't know how.
Nobody knew. I'm so sorry that, that your dad died. My dog died last year and I was sad, I mean, my grandpa died, or, my, they all related. They were relating and being compassionate. I just thought that was so wonderful. But one of the days during that week, he just had a total meltdown in class and he cried. And she said, she goes, his whole desk was just completely wet. He just started crying. And we just, the class was very sympathetic and very empathetic with him. And then she goes, and then, I took him over and we sat down and we talked, and I said, good. I said, I'm glad that happened. I'm sorry it happened here, that you had to do it. She said, no, it was okay. It was all okay. She was, I really felt bad for him, but I think it was good. And I said, good, because I didn't see that happen at home. So he had it. He just didn't have it with me or at home. So that was really good. And
You
I
think he was worried about you?
yeah. And he'll tell me today. And when he got older, and I think after he got out of high school, I don't remember what brought the conversation up again, but I told him about being on the phone.
Okay.
And so he knows everything now.
Okay.
He knows the whole.
What did he say when you heard the whole story?
He said he would never be able to forgive him for that.
Mm.
He said, he's obviously had problems, and obviously, things were going on with him and maybe with you and him. I don't really know, but he goes, one thing I will never be able to do is forgive what he did to you. And that's by doing that while you were on.
Yeah, that's.
And I said, oh, thanks. I said, I've had a lot of therapy.
Right. When did you start going to counseling after that?
Right away, like the next day.
Okay.
He had an appointment with the therapist, and I did. Well, I called her. So this happened.
By the way,
I called her and I said hi, and I think she could tell by the tone of my voice. As soon as my mom answered the phone, I said, "Mom." She goes, "Oh my God, what's wrong?"
Yeah.
And all I said was "Mom," and she said, "Oh my God, what's wrong?"
How did you tell his mother?
His mother? I didn't.
Okay.
I told his brother, and his brother went and told his mother.
How did the brother handle it?
I think he kind of expected it.
Mm-hmm.
I think he kind of expected it. I actually couldn't almost tell anybody. I called my mom, but one of the female deputies came home with me, and I gave her the phone number for my brother-in-law. Actually, I think she's the one that called my brother-in-law
and told them.
but then I talked to him, and then he took care of his mom. And then the oldest daughter, who was real not friendly with me or even him, he called it. She was demanding to know why she had gotten this, weird phone message from her dad, and and I want you to tell me what's going on. And I just handed the phone to the deputy, and she says, "Hi, this is deputy," and she says, "I'm sorry to tell you that your father has died."
Did she tell him how?
Yeah.
And what did she?
Then I heard the wailing on the other end.
Oh yeah.
It was like,
yeah. So how was the funeral?
There were two. So I did the burial down in Bakersfield. I buried him next to his dad, and it was really nice. It was outdoor. My pastor from Hollister went, and
how nice.
And some of my friends from Hollister went, and it was really beautiful. And then I had a couple weeks later, I had a service at church in Hollister with a lot of people came.
Did his mother come?
Yes, the girls came, and they brought his mom, and so they were all there, and they left. They were just there for that event, and then they went on back.
So you come and you go through all that. So you went to counseling the day after. What did the counselor say? She
said
she stopped?
Yes, she said, "I've never lost a patient." And she'd been doing that kind of work for many, many years. And she said, "I've never lost a patient. I'm in so much shock. I'm so sorry. I wish I could have helped him and helped you." And I said, I don't blame you.
Right. So what did therapy do? How did therapy help you change, or what changed you? When you said did your husband and you go to church together? You said your pastor went. Was your husband involved in church?
No, he didn't. Like he would go when it was certain things, but
you said pastor and not priest, so you were a Christian? Presbyterian. Okay, so you're in counseling, you're in therapy. How do you get over this? How do you change? How do you? And it's not that you need to change, but what changes for you? What changes in you? Because you're remarried now and been married for a long time.
I finally had control over my own life, even what I wanted to buy, where I wanted to go, when I wanted to go there. It became a lonely time because even though you have someone under your roof that you like, get the hell out of my sight, they're still there.
Right.
And it's still, you can still say, "Hey, could you bring me a soda?" I mean, there's still,
you missed him?
I missed having someone. He was almost never home though. That was the weird part.
But even though it's not home, he's there
but he's
because
there
he's
the
there.
stuff is there, and
Yeah.
he's going to be there.
Right.
Whatever's going to happen,
Mhm.
you're going to have
Right.
go out with another couple. You're going to do all these things, and then all of a sudden that just abruptly stops. And so a lot of things are a relief,
Mhm.
and a lot of
Mhm.
things are like, wow, this is a bummer.
Mhm. Bittersweet.
Yeah, it's awful to say that,
But it's real.
but it's real because if I lost my husband now, I would not have the same.
No.
And he's not perfect.
No, but the dynamics are different.
But the dynamics are different, and he is a much more loving man, and he doesn't swear at me and call me names. We actually made, it's like, I don't do that, and he goes, I don't do that either. So we've never called each other
out of each other's name.
Yeah. Now I may have said, or he may have said, don't be like that, but he never called me.
Right. There's a whole
name.
lot. There's different connotations.
Like I don't appreciate the way that you're being that way.
Right.
Or I don't think it was very nice of you to talk to me like that. Or
right. That's a whole lot.
That's
different
a whole lot different than you, bitch.
Yeah. So you go to therapy, and again, so that what changed for you was you have some level of loneliness, but you also have some level of relief and peace and control.
And control.
Control is what you have that level of autonomy. Emotional control. Is that what it is? Mental control?
I think, yeah, all of it.
All of it. You're taking back the reins that you had started to take back before this happened. So you were in that process when he committed suicide. So you were already in the process of having to regain the control that were the momentum.
Right.
And so
I can completely understand where, like I said, if I lost my husband now, I'm much more mature, and I do still have control over many aspects of my own life because I learned to never let it go again. But I would be crushed.
Of course, because it's different. The relationship
is different, and that would end. And so when you hear about or know of young women or young men who lose their spouse or their partner, and they're devastated, I can relate to that. I can tell. I didn't have it, but I didn't go through it. But I've seen people that have, and I wouldn't want it, but I completely appreciate.
So he commits suicide. You're in therapy. You're in counseling. Did you take your son to counseling?
I did. I took him. I found a counselor for children. She was a nun, actually, and she was recommended to me by my therapist. And he went about 3 or 4 times. And then she said to me that she didn't think he needed to continue to go because he seemed like he was managing his emotions, and he could talk about it. And she said, if he needs to come back, I'm happy, but I don't think that he needs to come back.
Well, I just want to tell you that I admire you for that. First of all, kudos to you for making your son safe in an unsafe situation, because a lot of times you don't get that acknowledgement that, yes, you're going through grieving and you're going through a whole lot of things that you have to process. But in the middle of that, you made sure that your son was so safe that even at that age, a therapist could say to you, you've done the work. Now, later on in life, how has that impacted him, do you think, in his relationships? So let's do this. When do you meet your husband now? How long?
I actually knew him before.
You did?
So, because I had gone to work for a company where he worked.
Okay.
And I didn't really get to know him very well just because of our jobs. But then our jobs kind of collided.
Okay.
Our manager said, I need you two to work on this project together. So that's when, I knew him, but then we had to work on this project together, and it wasn't that easy because of his personality and my personality.
Your husband now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because of what he wanted and what I was directed to do was.
And how much time had passed between
the time we met? Well, I only worked for that company about 6 or 7 months.
Okay.
And then I had gotten the job with the county. So I left. So,
So you knew him before your husband committed suicide?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, I
Okay.
knew him a year and a half or so before that. And
When did you start seeing him, or when did things change with you and him after your husband?
when my husband died, I had a whole lot of things that I had to do and get rid of. And one of the things I had to get rid of was a lot of tools. And he had actually gone into the tool business. And so word spread really fast, and people found out really fast what had happened. And people were calling, and people would stop by. And so, and I actually reached out to another friend and said, hey, I really need to, liquidate some of this crap that's in my garage. It's been hanging out that I've been trying to, deal with. So, we got in touch, and he came by and, started helping me with things that needed to be done. Cause my husband was a pack rat.
Did he say anything to you about it? Like, I'm sorry this happened to you?
Yeah, everybody was, the first thing they would say to me was, oh my God, are you okay? And it was like, are you okay? Is your son okay? Those were the two first questions that every single person asked me. Are you okay? Is your son okay? Okay, now what do you need? So yeah, it's like,
so he was a friend. When did it turn from friendship?
Pretty quick.
Did you like him all along?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
I liked him as a person.
I
liked him as a person. I thought he was kind of a neat guy and all that.
You thought he was attractive?
Yeah. But he actually was getting out of his marriage at the time.
Okay.
And so he'd been married to someone for a long time, and she had,
whatever
other issues and stuff like that. And so he was doing what I was doing, but sort of in a different way, because he didn't need to get his affairs in order. She had a lot of mental problems, and he didn't feel like he could just walk away when she had all these mental issues.
Right.
But then he finally just decided that, I could be doing this for the rest of my life.
And it's not going to change.
And he said, I don't want this for the rest of my life.
It's interesting because, divorce, dissolution, and then losing a spouse, it's still a death.
It is.
It's really a death. I mean, it's not the same, obviously, but I tell everybody it's a death. And you have to go through the mourning process. You have to go through the process of mourning. You have to go through the process of separation. You've got to go through, hopefully, did your husband did he get therapy when he left his wife?
No, they had counseling and therapy together. She was a prescription drug shopper.
Okay. Did you and your husband, before you got married, this husband here, did you go to counseling or any kind of premarital counseling?
We did a little bit. We did a little bit of that, not a huge amount, but some.
But you all were friends. You felt like you were friends, right?
Yeah.
Really transparent. So you said it changed kind of quickly.
I felt, there was a lot of trust there. I felt like he wasn't going to take advantage of my emotions, because he was married to an incredibly dysfunctional, emotional person. And he was sympathetic in that way to emotions. And he never put any,
demands on you.
On anything about me at all. So
how long did you date before you got married? So
let's see here. Probably 3 or 4 months after my husband died. So by the following spring, he was still married. He was still living with his, on paper he was married, and they were still living under the same roof, but they really weren't. She didn't like living they had moved to Hollister from San Jose, and she was a San Jose girl. And because that's a big difference. She was mentally disturbed. She wanted to be back in San Jose. And he's like, I'm not going back there. My job is here. I have a house here. I like this little town, basically. I like this little town.
Sure.
So they split. They split. She said, well, I'm going back. And he's like, bye.
And she left him.
And yeah, she moved back. She moved in with her mom, and
they didn't have children.
No, they never had. And they sold their house, and he stayed. And so that was pretty much it. That was probably, let me think. So my husband died in 2001, and he moved in with me in 2003. And that was when they separated. So they separated, and then he moved in with me so that he could sell their house, get that and she just booked back to San Jose, and then
Okay.
they had a
Divorced.
real easy divorce because they
okay.
didn't have any kids,
Mhm.
and
No property because they sold it.
they sold the house, and they really, it was pretty much equal equity. So,
Right.
and she had her car and her things, and he had his
And he
car.
felt he was ready to move on that quick.
Yeah, because according to him, and I do believe it just because of some of the things that his mom and his
Mhm.
sister-in-law and his brother
Mhm.
told me, was that,
Mhm.
they really weren't a married couple for
Okay.
a while, for a
Okay.
long while, because
Usually it's over before it's over.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and that's how it was. They were cohabitating. And he just didn't have the heart to tell her, and when she was in her mental
Oh,
decline, that
I'm
I'm gone, because he didn't want her to like
Right.
totally flip out, which she would totally flip out anyway, and she would spend 60 to 90 days in a mental institution up
Lord.
in San Jose. So he's kind of
bad
like,
news.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's over, it's done. There's
Yeah.
they're still friends. She thinks that she considers me a friend.
Okay, good.
We went out, we've taken her out to dinner for her birthday or for Christmas
Uh-huh.
several times. And the last time we went out to dinner, just before COVID, we took her out to dinner for Christmas, and we go to the restaurant, and the waiter comes and says, "Hi, my name is Bob, and I'll be your," she says, "Hello, my name is Kelly."
Because she's still not well.
She's not well. "My name is Kelly, and this is my friend Alan, and this is his lovely wife, Lauren."
Okay.
And so that probably, so then we have dinner, and we have a nice dinner, and then we go to a club, because there was there was some band that she likes, so we went to this club. So we go in, and we go to the bar. We're going to get a drink before we get a table, and bartender comes up, and in a club they're like, "What do you have?" "Hello, my name is Kelly,
For them to kiss
and
her
this
hand?
is my best friend Lori and her husband Alan."
You know what? So
But
okay.
she
Right.
that's how
That's her. So she's special.
how she feels about
That's
it.
how she's special.
That's how she sees it, and that's okay. And
And
so
so-
we had a good time, and
Your son is how old when you get married to your husband now?
he was 10.
10. How did that go?
He needed a man in his life, and that
That worked for
my
a while.
husband wanted a child, and he never was able to have one, because she prescription shopped, and he always wanted to have a
And by that
child.
time you didn't want any more
Oh
children.
no, I had already had a hysterectomy.
Okay. Okay.
Like,
And he married you even in that.
yeah,
Yeah. And so
knowing there would just be that one kid.
Right.
And I was 30. I was 40.
Oh, okay. That
I
makes
was
sense.
40, 41, 40. I don't know.
So you got married, and so he became your son's man in the house,
Mhm,
and your son seemed like he kind of acquiesced
mhm,
and was able to adjust that to that well, and you all lived together.
mhm.
And then your son was an only child.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now what? What changed? Has anything changed? So when you talk about, you went 180 from, there's a lot you've been through.
It's a big 180.
It's a big 180.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit earlier, and I said, if you could maybe, yeah, everybody's stomach. If you could name what this would be, your story, your going 180 story, what would you name it? I mean, my stomach having its tufts and turns when you heard it.
The name of my 180, I wouldn't really want to name it survival.
Mm-mm.
I think, as I said earlier, immersion.
Mm-hmm. And why do you say immersion? That's very strong.
Because I brought myself through the parted sea,
Mm.
and I emerged on the other side
Wow.
without damage.
Come
I
on.
mean, not perfect, but
Yeah, but
I
you're
made
right
it.
about that.
I made it.
You're right about that.
I
And you're in a healthy relationship. I mean, nothing's perfect. We're not saying it's
Nothing's perfect, and there's times I go, really, or I thought I said,
Right.
or
But
but
that's
then
a
there's
whole-
times he goes, really,
Right.
so
But that's a whole lot different than.
that's just two people cohabitating.
And you've been married how long now?
We have been married 20 years
Wow.
in February. So
Wow.
February 14th, we got married on Valentine's Day.
Oh,
I told him, I said, I'll give you a twofer. You won't have to remember 2 dates, just one. So
You look great. Wow. And your son is married.
he's married. He has a lovely wife and a 3.5-year-old little girl, and she's getting a brother in January.
See?
So yeah.
What a blessing. So nothing that you've gone through that you and your son have emerged through
Mhm.
caused him to not want to get married. In this day and age, a lot of times, because of social media, whatever it is, because of the lack of parenting, I guess, because of the lack of God in the home, maybe because of the lack of good education, and the lack of discretion, it seems like there are still some diamond in the rough, some cream of the crops that you've raised, and that he still believes in the institution of marriage.
Mhm. Well, when I got remarried, we were really a family for the first time
Mm.
because we did things as a family, and
Mhm.
Friday night was snack and movie night.
Mm.
We never had that before. We went on vacations.
Mm.
We would go do activities together. They would go play
Mm.
golf together. My son, I made sure he learned how to play golf. I felt like that was like a lifelong skill that was going to benefit him.
Mhm.
My husband played golf, so there were things that I would send them off to do together.
Mm.
And then there were things we did together as a family. There were things my son and I would do together.
Mhm.
So it was a normal, if that's a word in a
Mhm.
family. And as normal as I thought, we could make it. It
Mhm.
wasn't perfect. And there were times when it was like,
Sure.
what the heck is wrong with you? But
Mhm.
I don't care what kid or husband or wife or
Mhm.
unit you're talking about, that
Mhm.
happens because people are independent and
Mm.
people have their own thoughts and they process things in their own ways. But my son moved on with his life in a positive direction.
Mhm.
He did really well, and he joined the Marine Corps, and he
Look
had
at
an
that.
excellent Marine Corps
Wow.
opportunity, and he got out of the Marine Corps, and now he is a deputy sheriff for Napa County.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so he's done really well, and
Immersion.
he owns he owns his second house.
Come on.
Yeah, when he got out of the Marine
In
Corps
California.
in California, he and
In
his,
Napa Valley.
yeah, well, in
The first-
Winters, which is right next door to Napa
Yeah, but it's
Valley.
still a very nice part of
Yeah, so
California.
he's he's playing it right,
And he's married and he
and
has this child, and yeah. And he's not a cheater.
because he knows I would really get with him.
Right.
That's code for I'll kick your ass. I'm gonna get
Exactly.
with you.
Mhm. And he understood that.
Oh, he does.
So there's something about the values that you've instilled in him, even on the other side of immersion, that he still understood. I wouldn't do this. First of all, he has his own convictions, it sounds like,
Mhm.
but he wouldn't do this because his mom wouldn't tolerate it either.
Mhm.
Yeah, you wouldn't tolerate that.
I wouldn't.
And so are those types of, did you have that type of conversation with your husband now that you had, I've been through, he knows what you've been
Oh,
through
he
because,
knows. Yeah.
yeah. And you know what he's been through.
Mhm.
So there's been mental illness on his side, because I know also his sister suffers with some level of,
She has
Yeah.
extreme ADHD,
Mhm.
and as a result of being undiagnosed for so long, she's
so you all have dealt with
Mhm.
this together.
Mhm.
And so I think your husband is on that immersion as well, on some level. And
yeah, probably.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so now after 20 years, what do you look forward to?
Well, 20 more, and just being able to continue to have a good life and be kind to one another
Mhm.
and be happy with one another
Mhm.
and to support one another's activities and likes and dislikes. And if I want to go do something, I want him to support me in that endeavor. And if he wants to go do something, I support him in that endeavor. There's things we want to do together, and we say, do it like this. No, let's do it like that. No, let's do it like this. No, let's do it like that. Yeah.
Are you still are you still in counseling or therapy?
No, haven't
No?
been in long, since then. I think, yeah, I don't think I've had any occasion
Where you needed to go?
where I needed to
go
go
back.
and, straighten out my personal life. The
Mhm.
one thing about about my husband is that I can sit down. I choose the moment. I don't just blurt it out.
Sure.
I choose the moment, and then I'll say what I need to say.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes he'll just listen,
Mm-hmm.
and he knows through his prior life to not say, "Oh, that's stupid,"
Well, true. Yeah, that's not, yeah.
because that's not helpful.
No.
And he knows that. So, he'll listen. It would depend on when I said it. If I picked a bad time that was a time that was bad for him,
Mm-hmm. But isn't that the dance of relationship? Isn't
It
that
is.
the dance of knowing, of growth? And that's the dance of maturity as well, as knowing how to engage. I call it the rules of engagement. Yeah.
it's being empathetic to the other person's
Sure.
mood or point of view in the
Mhm.
moment.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Like, oh, this is not a good time to say, guess what happened?
Right.
Yeah. Unless it's, oh my God, this happened.
Right. And
That's
you can do that.
different.
And you can do
You
that
anytime
Right.
because
Well, I am blessed and I'm really excited that we had this time together.
thank you.
And this is hard conversations.
Yeah.
And, this is about talking to me here. And it's one of those things where I didn't know what we were going to necessarily talk about. I knew that we were going to talk about, the trauma of the suicide, but I didn't know how far it was going to take us and how it was going to then establish such wonderful content that I believe is not going to just bless when we go back and look at this later, but it's going to also bless people and people that have gone through it and people that need to emerge, people that have gone through what you've gone through, but didn't necessarily emerge.
And I think that's fear of moving on. And I think that
Do you think it's guilt?
I think it can be guilt. And I think guilt and fear are partners
Mm.
and in crime. And it's crime against yourself because
Right.
and it's so easy to tell somebody it's so hard to do it.
That's right.
And it is not a failure. It is just that sometimes people are just never ready.
That's right.
And you can't do it for someone
No.
and you can't force someone.
Mm-mm.
And so encouraging people to make themselves, I've talked to so many women and they have said to me, oh, I admire you so much for how you handled that. I had no choice.
See, I think that's what people don't realize is, and not being, not diminishing mental health, not diminishing anxiety, not diminishing this overhaul of the generation that's suffering now with depression and anxiety and panic and mental health issues that we went through it. And I say we went through it without anesthesia.
Yeah.
And I say that because we didn't go through it with all of the things that they seem to acquiesce to. Now, whenever we didn't have social media, so we didn't have that. Therapy was different. We didn't have therapy like they do now. You didn't talk about things a lot back then. There was more of a level of empathy and camaraderie when it came to smaller communities like yours was, and you felt comfortable being able to address what happened, but just saying, what do you need? Can I wash your clothes? Can I buy you groceries? Can I help your son? We just don't do that anymore like we used to. We just don't have that level of empathy and compassion and compatibility and trust. So I think that if you were to talk to, and I don't know how you would do it, and that's why I'm saying, if you were to talk to someone now that has gone through this on this side, where society is now and how they seem to deal with things now, there's such a level of we don't listen to each other. We're so far left and so far right. We know that. What would you say to a person now that experienced what you did?
I would say that listen to yourself, and people are going to give you all kinds of advice. And you need to do what's right for you, even if your mom doesn't think it's right for you, or your neighbor, or your cousin, or your brother, or your whoever. You need to soul search and do what's right for you. And even if that means something a little bit on the drastic side, maybe it means moving away, maybe it means taking on a roommate. Maybe it, to help you pay your bills. Maybe it means selling something to help you pay your bills. It could be anything. But if you pay attention to your children. If there are any
kids.
children involved, see to their needs. You know, they're you can't lay on the couch or lay in bed and expect them to be okay. You might need to lay on the couch or lay in bed, but you need to let somebody come and help you make them okay, or you need to get up and make them okay. Because I think that when you do that, it helps you. I think it helped me to be okay because I was helping my son to be okay. And it sort of sidetracked me a little bit to concentrate on him. And in doing so, I was making myself better a little bit, not.
That's good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm excited. Yay. Thank you, Lori.
If you or someone you know is struggling with thoughts of suicide or is in crisis, help is available. Contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org to chat with a crisis counselor 24/7. Your call is free and confidential.